more of like a Princess Leia vibe or a Minnie Mouse vibe? You're not gonna hurt my feelings. I just need to know.
Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Emily Paige Wilson. I'm a poet who also writes novels in verse for young adult readers, and my channel is a slight conglomeration of booktube and authortube and poettube. So if you are new here, definitely feel free to like and subscribe. We're slowly creeping our way up to 100 subscribers, at which point I will do a giveaway of...
Oh, I should have brought a copy.
When we hit 100 subscribers, I'm going to give away one, maybe two copies of my most recent chapbook, which is Hypochondria, Least Powerful of the Greek Gods, which came out, it's almost a 1-year anniversary. This came out with Glass Press last August. So definitely subscribe if you're into Greek mythology or health anxiety and just how we live in embodied presence in general. Today I have a book haul for y'all. And I feel like it wasn't that long ago that I did my spring book haul, so I'm gonna call this my summer book haul. And every single time I do a book haul, I say we don't have enough room in our duplex for more books.
But somehow we find a way.
So I'm gonna start with novels and then work my way through poetry collections. And then we have one literary journal to talk about as well. You'll notice the theme in this video is that all of these novels have beautiful, colorful covers. So congrats to all of the graphic designers and layout teams out there. Killing it. So the first book that I picked up this and two other books that I had wanted to read for a really long time at a bookstore in Seattle. Editing Emily is gonna have to put the name, I think it was Pearl Street Books maybe. We went hiking a little while ago and we stopped at a bookstore in Seattle and there was a copy of The Female Persuasion by Meg Wolitzer, which I had really wanted to read for quite a while. I had heard an NPR interview about this. This book follows our protagonist Greer, and she meets her feminist icon and eventually, well, I won't give anything away, but it explores themes of interpersonal relationships, but particularly this idea of who we romanticize as our heroes, and not just in this one character that Greer's kind of fixated on, who was a really prominent feminist in the 60s, but also relationships with your best friend, with your romantic partner, with your parents. And something I really love about Wolitzer's work is the way in which she can delve so deeply and intimately and astutely into the interpersonal workings of people's lives over a large span of time. That's probably the literature that I'm drawn the most to, is when you feel like you're living through somebody's life and you're unlocking secrets on every page about the human psyche and how we interact and how we often fail miserably to interact. The name of the famous feminist in this book is Faith, and I thought it was really interesting to see Wolitzer draw out a character who was once a pioneer in social thought, and then to see her kind of age out as a new progressive, much more nuanced in terms of class and race and sexuality. Like, as feminism becomes more nuanced, what happens to this aging white feminist with her ideology? I thought that was pretty interesting, although I think it could have been fleshed out a little bit more. But this idea of how our heroes are imperfect, how eventually what they fought for is going to become outdated, and you know, part of that's disappointing, but also part of that's just the route of progress. I didn't enjoy this book as much as The Interestings, just because The Interestings spans such a larger amount of time. Over the course of that cast of characters' lives, The Female Persuasion focused on a little bit more of a narrow timescape, but if you've read Wolitzer's work before and you haven't picked this up, I imagine that you will like it. I always get excited to reread authors whose work I've enjoyed before because it is like visiting a familiar friend. The next book I picked up, also at that bookstore, is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. And I don't know very much about this, besides the fact that the cover is really beautiful and that it was so buzzy. It was everywhere a few years ago, and I was so tickled when I saw it at this bookstore. This cover is beautiful. Like, I just love this like deep berry fuchsia crimson dress with this like really beautiful, like this wallpapered filigree, like olive and forest green. I'm assuming this is our protagonist, but just like the warmth of her skin tone and how this color story, this is beautiful. This is like an eyeshadow palette in a cover. It's so pretty. I don't know very much about this book. I know it's set in like that Gothic literary tradition. I believe it takes place in Mexico in the 50s. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm very excited to read this. And if you've read any of the books that I'm mentioning, definitely let me know down below in the comments. Don't spoil it, please, but just let me know what your thoughts were. This next book is the last book that I picked up at Pearl Street Books, and it is Red Clocks by Lenny Zumas. I know a little bit more about this book. I heard about it on NPR, and it's blurbed by Karen Russell and Maggie Nelson and Lydia Yuknovich. I mean, Kelly Link, like that's such a strong literary, I almost want to say coven. I'm into it. From what I've kind of gathered through literary osmosis, just hearing about it, it's dystopian. Kind of like I've heard this compared to a modern day retelling of The Handmaid's Tale. Abortion is once again illegal in the States. That kind of sets the premise. I am very excited to read this book. Also, I mean, Yannick, I'm here for it, right? Like this bold graphic design, that's Yannick, it's right? Yeah. This next book I pre-ordered so long ago and it arrived. If there's an author that you really like and they're coming out with a book and you know you want the book anyway, pre-ordering a book is a really great way to support authors, especially debut authors, because it signals to bookstores and publishers that there's interest around the book.
I don't know why I'm telling you all this. If you're on BookTube, you know this, but
this is Appleseed by Matt Bell. Again, like such a highly saturated, evocative graphic cover. And you know what's funny? I didn't realize this. Also, Karen Russell and Kelly Link blurbed this. So we're kind of in that same literary realm. I don't know if I was sleeping on Matt Bell for a while, but I feel like he's gaining more and more visibility, which I'm really excited about. Although maybe he already was visible and I'm just late to the game. It's happened before, but I love his novel.
Oh, I should have looked it up because the title is a little,
It's In the House Upon the Dirt Between the Lake and the Woods. Okay, one more time for those in the back.
In the House Upon the Dirt Between the Lake and the Woods.
I read that book maybe 2017 or 2018. It is one of my favorite novels. Like, hands down, one of my favorite novels. If you've read that book, you can have spoilers on this channel because I've already read it. If you've read this book, let me know what you thought about it. Beautiful. I have said on this channel before, I have a really high bar for when people refer to prose as being poetic.
like I'm afraid I'm a little bit of a snob about it.
But just because I work so much with poetry, I have a really high expectation if somebody describes prose as being lyrical. And Bell's language is so stunning, but it's not even just his language. It's the way he conceptualizes narrative in, I don't want to call it dreamlike. It's atmospheric, it's a little surreal. You're never lost though, but there is this otherworldly quality to his language at like the plot structure level, but also at the sentence level. I think he's fantastic. And he also has, I don't know if it's a Substack or what platform he uses a newsletter for, but he's writing a book on revision, which I'm probably gonna have to pre-order that too. And he offers a lot of exercises via his newsletter. So I will leave all of his information linked down below. But now back to Appleseed, since I've just spent the last 5 minutes being a hyper fan of his. So just the inside cover describes this book as being part speculative epic, part tech thriller, part reinvented fairy tale. And I think maybe fairy tale-esque. It's so, I don't know, it's so hard to describe his work. It's really fantastic. Just really quickly to give y'all some premise, in 18th century Ohio, two brothers travel into the wooded frontier, planting apple orchards from which they plan to profit in the years to come. 50 years from now, in the second half of the 21st century, climate change has ravaged the earth. 1,000 years in the future, North America is covered by a massive sheet of ice, inhabited by only one lonely being in a deteriorating tech station. I'm very excited for this book. The next book that I picked up is The Great Believers by Rebecca Mackay. I don't know very much about this book. You will find this as a theme in this video, except that the cover is beautiful, highly graphic, highly colorful, and that it got a lot of buzz. And I don't mean buzz as in like it's not worth the hype. I mean, this was a National Book Award finalist. I just mean that it was getting a lot of circulation around like the radio stations I listen to, blogs that I read. It's also blurred by Michael Cunningham, and The Hours is also one of my favorite novels. Again, that like really beautiful introspection of characters and relationships over decades. We love to see it. I don't know much about this book. I was watching a video of Rebecca talking about it this morning to kind of prep for filming this video. She said it's set in Chicago in the 80s at the heights of the AIDS crisis. And that's really all I know about this book, but I am looking forward to reading it. I picked up this book at my university's bookshop, and I'm very disappointed because they're no longer going to be selling hard copies of books in the bookshop. Like, that just kind of breaks my heart. I mean, we've talked about this before, the tension on BookTube that I feel between not wanting to encourage overconsumption while knowing that at the same time, especially knowing that the publishing industry can often be financially fraught, especially for all of us who aren't like that top tier of authors. You know, it was really nice to be able to pick up a copy of this book for $1.60, but then at the same time, it's like,
the book sales are doing so poorly that the university bookstore isn't going to be selling like popular fiction books or poetry anymore.
But the second novel that I got from that book sale is Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James. I have not read A Brief History of Seven Killings. This would be my first time reading James's work. I don't know very much about this. I'm not sure if this would be classified as sci-fi or fantasy. I don't know very much about this narrative except that it's supposed to be really fantastical. Myth, fantasy, and history merge in the stunning novel following a mercenary and his search for a missing child. Defying categorization and full of unforgettable characters, Black Leopard, Red Wolf is both surprising and profound as it explores the fundamentals of truth, the limits of power, the excesses of ambition, and our need to understand them all.
As a Capricorn, I'm definitely here for talking about the excesses of ambition.
So if you've read this novel, let me know what you thought about it down below. Spoiler free. So now we're going to talk about some of the poetry collections that I have. This is Savage Flower by Anna B. Sutton. This book had two things going for it. I pre-ordered this book. One, it's with Black Lawrence Press, which y'all know is one of my favorite presses, up there with Nightboat Books, my two faves. And also Anna and I think she graduated before I got there, but we both went to the University of North Carolina, Wilmington to get our masters. And I recently made a video, I think this should be the video before last, I'll leave it up here,
or up here,
about my experience with my MFA, but I do always really like to support other UNCW poets. So I don't know very much about this collection, but I am excited to read it. I was thinking about it this morning, so it might be my next read. And also, I would call this yonic too, right? Like, this is a vaguely yonic image, right? This next book I also picked up, I think the next 3 poetry collections I picked up at the university's bookstore sale. And this is Field by Josh Charles. There's a blurb from Banu Kapil on the back, who is one of my favorite poets. I read this collection prior to filming this video, but I think it's one that you need to return to, or maybe not you, I won't be prescriptive, I'll be descriptive. I think I'm going to be interested in returning to this book because Charles does a lot with language. And if you've read the collection, you'll know what I'm talking about. She plays a lot with infusing modern day English with almost this like Chaucer-esque type of spelling. The front cover, I thought this was a really astute way to kind of summarize this collection. It's a lyrical unraveling of the circuity of gender and speech, defiantly making space for bodies that have been historically denied their own vocabulary. I think that's a really astute observation. This book uses language and white space to kind of push up against having an embodied identity and what that means and how much fluidity there is in that. I found the videos of Josh reading her work on YouTube, and so I will leave those links down below. This is Slow Lightning by Eduardo C. Corral, and believe it or not, I haven't actually read any of his work. I know who he is. He's quite an accomplished poet. I mean, this won the Yale Series of Younger Poets Award. He also, I believe, has received a Whiting Award. This is a signed copy that the bookstore was selling. So I am very excited to be able to spend time with this collection. I feel like there's so many poets who I think to myself, how have you not read this person before? But it's really just there's so many poets and there's so much good work that it's hard to get to everyone.
Did anyone else's middle school teacher like scar them for life?
We used to practice typing. You'd have to type sentences that my middle school computer teacher put on the whiteboard, and he wrote, "Read the best books first. You'll never have time to finish them all." And I'm not sure to whom to attribute that quote, but we had to type it like 100 times every morning, and like 13-year-old Emily was forced to face her mortality in that 6th grade computer lab. And
Thanks, Dr. McMahon.
this collection, this is the last collection that I picked up at the bookstore sale. This is Saints of South Dakota and Other Poems by Catherine Whitcomb. I am unfamiliar. I've not heard of this collection. I had not heard of Catherine's work. I really just wanted to pick it up so I could go into a collection without any preconceived notions. Let me know if you have this experience. Something that I think is really fun about Twitter is that you can be connected to your favorite poets and authors and artists. And I mean, it's curated, but it feels more intimate, right? But sometimes I miss just being a kid pre-social media and just going to the library and just picking up a book out of sheer curiosity and not knowing anything about the author or the context. So I wanted to replicate that experience for myself. This book was also just $1.40 because of the closing out sale, and it just, in my MFA video, I talk about how most of us aren't going to make much money from art. And I know that's not...
One, that's not the point.
But there's always something that's like a little bit sad to me when I see books on sale for like $1 or $2. Again, it's just me having to reckon with my own mortality, I guess. Why did it get so dark? Why am I getting so...
It's not even Scorpio season.
So the last poetry collection that I have is Nurture the Opened Wounds by Marcus Clayton, and this is the most recent release from Glass Poetry Press. So it's always nice, like I said before, this is where my chapbook came out with. It's always nice to be able to read the work of a new pressmate. I have read this collection, and it is definitely, in terms of theme, it's very tightly woven around the idea of wounds. A lot of language like bruised and bent and broken, very textured in that way. And it also gives a lot of really intimate portraitures of the speaker's father as well. So if those themes are of interest to you, I would recommend checking this out. Also, Glass recently posted like the 20 finalists for their next round of chapbooks. Definitely a lot of names that I was excited to see, but particularly one of my internet buddies, Stephanie Tom, was on there, and I would really love for her to have a poetry collection with Glass. So I'll leave her Twitter down below in case y'all want to check her out and check out her work. And then the last book that I have is the newest, I'm assuming it's the newest, the most recent edition of Plowshares.
Why is it so hard?
I'm just reading through the back now, and it has Amelia Gray, who...
What was the name of that book? It's upstairs. It's on my leaning bookshelf upstairs.
Is it Threads? Anyway, I really like her work. She's the only name that I recognize on the back, but it has been a little while since I've sat down and just read a literary journal cover to cover, which I actually do. I know a lot of people say people don't read literary journals, so maybe it'll be this one. Although I also have some back issues of the Black Warrior Review, which is one of my favorite literary journals. So thank you guys for hanging out. As I mentioned earlier, feel free to like and subscribe. If you've read any of these books or are looking forward to reading any of these books, definitely let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts or just what you're reading. Let me know what you're reading now or what you've read recently that you really enjoyed that you think I should check out. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. I'll see you next time. Bye.